Buenos días, vamos a iniciar. Muy bien, pues muchísimas gracias por estar aquí, gracias por acompañarnos en este día. Tenemos a una invitada especial que viene desde muy lejos, desde Croacia, Zagreb. Un poco más en total yo creo que son como 15 horas de viaje, entonces estamos sumamente agradecidos por este esfuerzo que junto con la doctora Natasha, ya les platicaré un poquito más de ellas, la doctora Anita, ya también van a escucharla, la doctora Anita Lauri, van a, vamos a tener diferentes actividades con ellas y esta es una de las actividades centrales de inicio. Y antes de presentarla formalmente a ella, quiero platicarles un poquito desde dónde se enmarca este trabajo, ¿no? Es una actividad que inicia desde, bueno, empezamos a hacer todos los trámites desde el año pasado. En realidad es una actividad por primera vez realizada en la facultad. No sé si podría atreverme a decir que en toda la universidad, probablemente no, pero al menos en la facultad es la primera vez que tenemos un intercambio bilateral de Erasmus académico y también vamos a después aterrizarlo con los estudiantes del posgrado. Estos intercambios académicos bilaterales en Erasmus se llevan principalmente dentro de la Unión Europea. Y es la primera ocasión que pues tenemos la oportunidad de que este intercambio se dé entre una universidad europea y la UNAM, ¿no? En este caso, Facultad de Psicología y en particular dentro del grupo de trabajo con el que nos hemos vinculado desde hace ya 10 años con la Universidad de Zagreb, Croacia, desde las STAR, que para algunos es conocida, es la Strength, Anxiety, Trauma and Resilience Society. La STAR es una sociedad encargada de estudiar todo lo que tiene que ver con ansiedad, estrés, trauma, resiliencia, y pues tiene un poco más de 45 años. Es una de las sociedades en las cuales yo como estudiante todavía de licenciatura, empecé también a participar de manera activa cuando la doctora Emilia Lucio, que fue con quien yo realicé parte de mis estudios tanto de licenciatura como del posgrado, ella era socia de esta sociedad desde el 2020, no, perdón, desde el año 2000, sí, sí, justo cuando la huelga inició. Y bueno, yo me incorporé en el 2005 y desde ese entonces he estado activa en la Star Society. Entonces, gracias a ese vínculo, y se los platico como estudiantes del posgrado, porque creo que es muy importante que también ustedes sepan el impacto que tiene todas las actividades académicas y de intercambio que se hacen dentro de las universidades. Espero que se puedan beneficiar muchos de ustedes de ellas, ¿no? Los de especialidad, pero también los de las maestrías y por supuesto los de doctorado, sin dejar de lado a todos los estudiantes de licenciatura, ¿no? Entonces, la gran ventaja de este intercambio es que tengamos la posibilidad hoy de escuchar a la profesora Anita Lauri Corarija. Sorry for the pronunciation. Ella es profesora titular de la Facultad de Humanidades y Ciencias Sociales de la Universidad de Zagreb, es una de las universidades más antiguas de Europa también, y dirige la Cátedra de Psicología Clínica y de la Salud en la universidad. Imparte clases en programas de grado, posgrado y doctorado, bueno, maestría y doctorado, y ha supervisado numerosas y diversas tesis sobre psicología clínica y de la salud. Su investigación y trabajo profesional se centran en la salud mental, el estrés y el trauma y sobre los aspectos psicológicos de la violencia de género, que es un poco desde lo que nos va a platicar el día de hoy con esta presentación. La profesora Lauri es una psicóloga e investigadora con larga trayectoria y una amplia experiencia en el apoyo psicológico a víctimas de violencia. Ha colaborado con centros de asesoramiento y ONGs que apoyan a mujeres sobrevivientes de abusos y traumas de guerra y ha impartido numerosas formaciones sobre cooperación intersectorial y atención psicosocial. Tiene ya este es el segundo periodo y actualmente es secretaria de la Sociedad Internacional para la Investigación sobre Estrés, Trauma y Resiliencia, el STAR, como les platicaba, y es un gusto tenerla el día de hoy con nosotros. Por favor, recibamos a la doctora con un aplauso. Welcome. for the presentation, but answers is okay. For you.
Like for the surgery. Buenos días. Buenos días a nuestros asistentes y a las personas que nos siguen a través de nuestro canal, que hoy estamos estrenando, nuestro canal del pueblo. Buenos días a nuestro distinguido presidium, a la doctora Paulina Arenas Landgrave, quien es profesora de nuestro programa y de nuestra facultad y responsable del programa de atención para depresión y riesgo de suicidio, y muy especialmente a nuestra invitada el día de hoy, la doctora Anita Lauri, quien nos visita desde el Erasmus de Croacia de la Universidad de Zagreb para presentarnos la conferencia From Coercion to Care, Psychological Approach to Gender-Based Violence, perdón por mi inglés, a la cual me congratula enormemente darle la bienvenida. Transversalizar la perspectiva de género ha sido una urgencia para las distintas disciplinas humanas, donde la psicología no es la excepción. En tiempos donde la prevención, la visualización y la concientización se vuelven los mejores aliados de las y los profesionistas de la salud mental. Escucharemos el enorme trabajo que llevan a cabo en un país de gran relevancia en el panorama internacional y que nos permitirá acercarnos a cómo, desde esa latitud, conciben la perspectiva de género, el cuidado y lo que implica el frenar las violencias vinculares y relacionales que afectan a nuestra sociedad. Estimada doctora, la UNAM es su casa. Está usted en la universidad con más prestigio de toda Iberoamérica, donde tenemos el gusto de recibirla. Siéntase en su casa académica, nos dará un gusto enorme aprender de usted, de su talento, nos sentimos honrados y felices de tenerla aquí. Y bueno, asimismo, mi gratitud y reconocimiento a la gran labor de mi querida doctora Paulina Arenas, anfitriona y enlace que hizo posible que el día de hoy ustedes estuvieran aquí. Bienvenidos y bueno, pues vamos a escuchar a la doctora. Adelante.
So thank you very much for the presentation. I understood it, but when it's fast, I lose it. When it's slow, I can understand. And it's from Televista Presenta. So sometimes it's good to look at the soap operas. Okay, so I'm very happy to be here. I like the amount of people. It's very good for my family. So, and this allows me, I hope this allows me to communicate to have a connection. So please, I will ask you some questions and discuss, because I'm really, really interested in finding out a little bit more about the situation here in Mexico, because I only know from what I read, but I think from the people you can know the best. So as you can hear from what Professor Landgrave told you, I work at the university, and then outside from the university, I work with the victims of or survivors, because we prefer the term survivors of the gender-based violence. It's mostly women, sometimes it's young girls, and then recently we have a lot more and more older women, like 65 plus, who decides to leave the partners like after 40 or 50 years of marriages and abuse, because they decided not to die as a victim, but die as a survivor. So, okay. So for the start, I want you to understand a little bit what it means to live in an abusive relationship, how that reflects on why victims stay, because usually we do have questions about that, and sometimes as an experts we have difficulties understanding why they're not leaving or why they are coming back. If they leave, they then decide to come back. So why do they do that? I'm going to talk a little bit about femicide, or murder of a woman, And then at the end of trauma-informed care, or how it can be used in working with women. I really explored the extent of violence in Mexico, and I will show you some. I will show you some statistics that I found. But as you can see from this, and this is from the World Health Organization statistics, you are a little bit better than the world, because the prevalence is 24, a lifetime prevalence is 24%, so it's like every fourth woman. Usually we are talking about every third woman which is experienced violence during their life. And in the past 12 months, we are talking about 13, but in Mexico it's 10%. So it looks like it's pretty good statistics. It's never good. We want it to be zero, but it looks like you are, better than global levels. And you can see the prevalence of violence really is lower in these older groups. Okay, so then I looked at the statistics for Mexico, and I found Mexico Peace Index report. It's from 2025, so it's actually pretty new. And then I saw that maybe the statistics of the World Health Organizations are not that, they are more optimistic, I would say, than the reality. Yeah. So some of their statistics said that for every sexual offense committed against a man, 9 are committed against women. So it's 9 times more often women. 7 in 10 women over the age of 15 report experiencing some form of violence in their lifetime. So it's really 40% of them suffer abuse from a partner. Half of the women aged 15 and older reported experiencing sexual violence at some point in their life, and 23% in the last 12 months. And then looking at the special group of young women, young girls, between age of 5 and 9, they are being 3 times more likely to be sexually abused than boys, and then 15 to 17, 8 times more often being sexually abused than boys of the same age. So I would say that one is pretty great. And then I looked at the statistics for the femicide, and then I found that it's actually rising, because it was 19%, it was presented in like 20% of female homicide altogether, but it's rising now to the 24% in 2024. So this is, I would say, something giving us a little bit more than the reality, but as globally as we are saying, we are talking about shadow pandemic, because the numbers are always gray. Because we have numbers from the police, we have from the police reports, we have numbers from the self-reports, we have numbers, but we actually don't know what's going on, because lots of it's getting unreported, because women are not really prepared, or they're not ready to report violence, especially when it comes from the family member or when it comes from the intimate partner. So we are going to talk a little bit today about why this is happening. But we know that these numbers are actually, we would say, a bit lower than, we don't know how much lower, but we would say they're lower than what the reality is. So the first question for you is, what would you do if it happens to you? Do you know? You are in a relationship, and then one day he pushes you, and you are like pushed against the wall. You are fighting something, and then he pushes you, like, go away, he pushed you, and you go. Or you were fighting and he came, you know, like pin you to the wall and then start yelling like that. This could happen. What would you do? Do you have an idea? I hope you don't have an experience, but if you have an idea, what would you do in that situation? Would you leave? Would you stay? Would you lay? Would you shout at him? Would you fight back? But what girls? What do you think?
I would fight.
Okay, fight. You would leave. Okay. Others? Okay. That's true. Okay. So these are the ideas we have about what would we do. Because if we weren't in that situation, we actually don't know. Yeah, so you know, but we do have an idea. Like I would in Croatia, we have some other people are saying I would fight back, I would cut some parts of his body, I would like, you know, it would be the last time, I would cut his head of his hand, or something like that. But we actually don't know. We have no idea how it happened, why it happened, what happens next. Do I have one child, zero child, two child, three children? Do I have a job, or do I have a place to live? What do I have a social network which will, you know, like care for me afterwards? Do I have any options? What do I think happened? I don't know how it's in Mexico, but in Croatia, when kids are in the kindergarten and he's pulling her hair, it's usual behavior. I don't know if it's in Mexico, if you have braids and then boy comes and pulls your hair. In Croatia, we have a saying, who fights loves. And then we usually say to the kids, he likes you. And then he doesn't know how to express, so he's pulling your hair. So from the age of 3 or 4, we are saying to the little girls, if he fights, you know, if he's doing you harm, that's because he loves you. We think it's completely innocent, like, but come on. When we are 25, 18, 16, 15, 42, it's not quite funny anymore. And it's not quite innocent anymore. So we all have lots of personal values regarding what relationship is, how people should act in a relationship, what are my options. If you're married, we all have some ideas about fighting for the marriage, fighting for the relationship. You should stay, you're not, it's not good to go away after the first black period or like at first. So we all have some personal values about that. We also have some personal background. How was my family? How was my parents' relationship? What happened there? What was I witnessing of my whole life? Is it okay? We also have some saying like, marriage is compromise. Everybody fights in a marriage, so it's not unusual. You know, you should tolerate some of that. You know, so we do have some ideas which will actually determine what will we do, but in that situation. In this situation, it's just an idea. And then there's another problem. I couldn't find the data for Mexico, but you would probably help me. In Croatia, we have a really special problem, which is called double arrest. It's when the women call police and say he was violent towards me, and the police comes, and then he said, but she pushed me, or she said, go to hell, or you're stupid, or I will do something. Then they arrest the both of them. So both of them go to the court, and both of them usually gets evicted. So afterwards, you have a woman which has a criminal record, saying she's a family violence person. So this is something which was which brings lots of concern in Croatia. Since we are in the European Union, we have lots of regulation which are related to European Union regulations, and we have some shadowing doing by the European Union. So when they write reports, they are saying this is really bad practice. You should not do that because you are actually arresting victims, you know. And only because he said, like, you know, you should divide them, you should talk, you should see what's going on, what's happening, and then, you know, fighting back is not violence. Fighting back is an option which you have, and it's not criminalized even in the law. So fighting back is something that it's expecting and it's okay. But if you fight back, girls, you could get arrested. So that's also an option. So you have a situation when women call police comes, he says she's going, and the police said, okay, then we are going to take you both. And then the women says, okay, then nothing happens. I'm revoking my call. It was just, okay, so, you know, because they don't want to go through that. If you have kids, then the police take the kids and take them to social services. So, you know, so now it's not, I'm being treated violently and I call police to protect me. This is like a whole different level of what's going on. So that's also the problem. But what's really, really important is that you, when you're working with women who are going through violence or who've been through the violence and trying to get away or did get away, you should try to put yourself in their shoes, not from our shoes. Because from our shoes, the situation could look completely different. I have lots of friends, I have a job, I have good family, they will support me 100%. You know, I could, you know, do whatever I want, so I could leave. So I don't understand why you are not leaving. And this is sometimes a very bad, this sometimes results in what we've called structural violence, because you have experts who are now being violent toward the women because they don't understand the violence, what's going on, why she's staying or why she's not leaving, or what happened and everything. So the first message I would really like to for you to take away is not to look from your shoes. Try to look the situation from her shoes, because they're completely different. And situation from that perspective could be completely different than from yours. Okay? So I would tell you something a little bit about what's going on with how living with an abusive partner looks like. And these are some of the strategy used. They are from I put it really small, but this is really big and important wheel of power and control, which is used usually to describe this, but I will describe it. But for me, it's much better to describe it as a web. Okay? Because it's happening really gradually, and it's like one part at a time. It's not the web which happened all at once. You just, you know, wake up one day and you are in the abusive relationship. It's just like tactics or, you know, strategies are being used one at a time. So how it happens at the beginning? At the beginning, you're having like his attempts to control you, but they're really, really subtle. So, question for you girls: like, you're going, it's night, you're going to have a drink with your friends, and he looks at you and he says, "Oh, I was just thinking we could watch the movie tonight. You know, the movie that you like. I was just planning a romantic dinner." Huh? So what would you do? Stay or go? Go is the correct answer. Yeah. But some of the girls stay. And they say, "Oh my God, he's so romantic. Oh, I've been to look at the movies. Oh, I have such a good boyfriend." Actually, he's trying to control you. He's preventing you from going with your friends. That's what happened. The next, like, really cool one is he's having a car, he has a car, and he's always coming to pick you up. You're at the university, he comes to pick you up. You're at your friends, he comes to pick you up. And everybody's saying, oh, this is so romantic. He's so, taking care of you, not allowing you to drive in the, I don't know, trams, subways, buses, or everything. Yeah, but actually, he's controlling. Where are you? What are you doing? When are you going home? And all the other time. But at the beginning, it really looks like really romantic gesture. Okay. Or you are all dressed up to go out and he said, ah, you're going like that. I said, what's wrong? He said, no, no, nothing. Okay, no, nothing. Okay, oh, no, why? What do you think? He said, no, for me, you are the most beautiful girl in the room. But I know other boys. I know other men. I know how other men will look at you. I'm just worried about you. It's not about me. I'm worried about you. Okay, maybe I could change this shirt. Okay. Or why are you so dressed up? You're going out. Why are you, like, you want other people to like look at you or to attract some other people? And you say, no, I just like to look nice. Okay. And then one strategy at a time. It's like one piece of web which is coming next. And then your friends. They are really nice at the beginning, but then he starts to talk about them like, I don't like this one is really chatty, this one like talks to everybody, this one is a little too flirty. When you go out, she's always with other men and I don't like that. This one, she doesn't like me, so she's probably always talking bad things about me. This one, I see she's not a good influence. And then one at a time, and then you say, no, they're my friends, I'm going to go out, and then you go out, you come home, and then you have a silent treatment for the next 3 hours, or like he's so cute, like, are you okay? Yes, okay. But actually he's mad. So you start to avoid this going out. Like you start to avoid your friends, you start to stay home, to stay with him, and your social network is sometimes getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The same thing is with your family. Like your family doesn't like me, or he makes a collaboration with your family saying, you are lucky that I have your daughter. She's a piece of, oh, she's something. It's really hard with her. You should be lucky I'm the one, taking care of her. You're not going to find another man who could be this good with your daughter. And your parents would say, yes, we were lucky you came because we thought she would never get married, nobody, because she's really tough. She's always something, So these are all the things that really one at a time, one piece at a time, you're getting isolated from your friend, you're getting isolated from your family. And then other things start, like money. You're having your own money and you're spending it. And he says, you're spending too much. Do you really need a third t-shirt or third jacket? We could invest better. We could save. So maybe I should be the one taking care of our finances because I'm better at this, because you are spending too much on the things we don't need. So you said, that's smart because he's thinking about our future together and he's planning. And I really do not need fourth t-shirt or fifth or whatever, how much I like it. I really maybe don't need it, And then you're working, you have a salary, but you don't have a money because he's controlling all the finances and he's controlling all the money. And at the end of the road, it's starting like that, but at the end of the road, we have women who work and have zero money because he controls everything. And if she's going, and he's going to the supermarket, she should make a list what she needs. And then he goes to the supermarket and then he decides, we don't need this item. We don't need this item. This is okay. So he comes back with the items he said he had an idea they needed, not what she actually needed. So in the 21st century, we have women who don't have sanitaries for their periods because it's redundant. We don't need that. You could, you know how in old times women also had their periods and they used cloths, they used papers, they used something else, so you can use it also. It's much cheaper than buying this, and it's much better for the environment, you know? So in 21st century, we have women who work and don't have money to buy the sanitaries. That's the end of the road. But it didn't start it like that. It started really, really like small gestures, then jealousy. In Croatia, we also have a saying that if everybody needs to be a little bit jealous, that's a sign of love. No, big no. That's a sign of ownership. You're mine, and I don't like anybody else to have something to do with something that's mine. It's not like I love you. That's but young girls have they have a little bit pride in that. Like he loves me that much that he's jealous. Not a good sign. Red flag all over it. And then everything else starting, minimizing what you are doing in a relationship, denying that like you have a fight. Tomorrow morning you say, okay, are we going to talk about the fight? And he says, what fight? You said, like, fight that happened yesterday. He said, okay, so you are overreacting again. You are completely, you are, dramatizing. Nothing happened. We just had a conversation. And then you said, okay, maybe that's true. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe that's what happened. Blaming you for everything. If the kids are good, they are his kids. If the good kids are behaving bad, they are your kids, and this is your fault. Using children like, look at your mother, she's not like, she's always yelling at you, she's always, I'm the fun parent and she's the not so much fun parent, and she always asks you to do things. I'm not like that. I'm buying things, I'm spending 5 minutes a day with you, but it's really joyful 5 minutes. Using male privileges like, I'm the man, I should not be doing this, it's your job. And then just like little by little starts the threat, starts the intimidation. If you try to leave, I will take the kids. If you try to leave, I will tell everybody that you are crazy. You will lose your job. You're completely mentally unstable. Everybody will see that. And actually, at that time, that's a little bit true, because she is unstable, because she's completely, she doesn't know what to think. Her self-esteem is completely low, because every time she does something, he says, it's not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not looking good. You're not smart enough. Everything you say is stupid. You're behaving really badly. So, you're starting to question yourself. And you're starting to be really on the edge, and he's completely cool with it. So this is why I use the web, not the real, but the real is here, so you know. This is why I use the web, because and sometimes there are no physical violence, none at all. Just a little bit of emotional and psychological abuse, maybe even sexual abuse, but lots of coercion, lots of coercive control. And women are they don't know what's happening to them. And sometimes they come and say, I really want him to hit me, because if he hits me, then I know what's going on. Then everything is completely clear. Like this, am I crazy? Am I, is this all the pretend? Am I inventing things? Because is this really happening? And the web is already there. So when they start to question themselves, the web is there, and it's really huge. And then the things you should really, really, if from their shoes, think about, it's happening from someone they love. it's not the stranger on the street. It's not the neighbor. It's the person you love and you think loves you the most. So everything is happening in that terms. It's not happening in, you're walking in the street and somebody pushes you or saying, oh, you're ugly, or how do you look, or you're stupid. You wouldn't be affected. But when it's happening from somebody you love and you trust and you think wants you the best, that's something to think about. In last decades, lots of scientific and lots of expertise is using this term, coercive control. It's like an umbrella term of what's happening in the abusive relationship. It's deliberated and calculated pattern of behavior and psychological abuse designed to isolate, manipulate, and terrorize the victim into the complete submission. Why we are using this term more often? Because the era of really bad physical abuse is really starting to be over. Because the police, nobody really tolerates this anymore. So if you beat your wife and she has bruises and she's hurt and she has to go to the emergency, or you call the police and she has some scars, the police will react immediately in every country, because it's like, okay, this is not happening, so we are not going to tolerate this. So instead, lots of tactics are beginning to look like this, because then you don't know what to report and to call the police for what, which tactics, which of the behavior are you going to call it for? So lots of attention is being now on this, on this behavior. This is the quote I found on the net. I really like it and I use it all the time. So because it really describes what's going on in the relationship. You can read it maybe. So this is how the life in abusive relationship look like. You lose yourself. You lose every part of yourself that you think he's not going to approve. And it's always something different. So this is how it looks. And we don't see this from the outside. We don't see this. From the outside, we only see the box, or we only see the edges, or we only see the first box. So coercive control, it's different from the manipulation. We all manipulate people sometimes. If we want something, we use something to get it. Yeah? As parents, we usually manipulate our kids. If we want them to eat something, we promise the sweets after the lunch. But the coercive control is not pure manipulation, It goes beyond simple manipulation. It's about domination and control over another person, often achieved through intimidation and fear. So victims or women are really afraid of what could happen. They're really afraid of if I react, or if I behave, or if I go away, something really bad is going to happen to me. And only thinking and only believing that something really bad is going to happen to me, it's enough for us to stay. You don't need a proof, because you're really avoiding a proof. You're avoiding this situation. So you're staying, you're changing yourself, you're listening, you're you're tolerating and you're living in abusive relationship for many, many years. So these are some tactics. I always like this because he's like it's the puppet. So he's using isolation, which I already explained. So at one point of the time, you have women who don't have friends, who are not really good with the family, who are all alone, who only has their, social network is his friends with their families, not her friends. He used violence or intimidation and threats. Sometimes he uses including her in some criminal actions. We have lots of that. I'm working currently with a woman which was trafficked during the marriage. Her husband was selling her to other men and taking money for it. And she thought that he just had kinky sexual preferences and that he likes threesomes and that he likes her having sex with other men. He was calling it sharing. And we all know sharing is caring. So he was presenting this as something if you love me, then you would do this for me. She didn't know he was taking money for it. She just knew he was bringing men for her to have sex during the marriage. And then at some point he started really bad physical violence. The police came one day, and then the police, since they were watching him because they know who the men who are selling wives are, they were talking to her and saying, you know that you're actually a prostitute. And she said, like, no, she works in a really good place at the public in Croatia, and she is currently in her PhD studies. So she's a really smart woman, but she was thinking, she was showing him how much she cared. And then there's lots of psychological abuse. There's gaslighting. You know the term gaslighting? Okay, you know how it looks in a relationship? You have an idea? Okay, well, I always talk to my students about the client I had and the yellow duck. You know, the small, all over Europe, we have the small yellow plastic ducks. The children, for the bath, the children use it for when they're in the bath. Do you know the duck I'm talking about? Okay, so in the Europe now you have stores with different ducks, and they're really expensive. So their child had a yellow duck. It was a gift from a family member he didn't like. So all the time the kid was playing with the duck, he was saying, why are you giving him this? I don't like this duck. He was always, throwing the duck and everything. And one day the duck disappeared. There is no duck. And she said, okay, have you seen the duck? And he said, what duck? She said, like, the yellow duck. He said, no, our son never had a duck. She said, like, come on, he had a duck. He said, completely crazy. He never had a duck. And then she said, okay, mobile phone, pictures. Found a picture of the son with a duck. She said, there's a duck. And he said, yeah, but that's not his duck. That's a duck of a friend who came by and brought a duck. Our son never had a duck. And she was like, what should I do? Should I call the police and say he stole the duck and he claims we never had a duck? A plastic one, or what's going on? But at the same time, he was always doing other things, like she would go to the supermarket, come, all week buying for 2 weeks of food, coming to the cashier, and she would have to pay, open the wallet, the card is not inside. Like, oh my God, you can just imagine. You just had the cashier scanned for 25 minutes or your items, you have to pay and you don't have a card. And she was like, oh my God, sorry, I don't have a card. What should I do? And then she calls him and said, oh my God, I'm at the cash register, I don't have a card. You should come. And he said, you're completely useless. You're so crazy, you don't know where your card is. You need me, you know, to get you out of every situation. Then she goes out. She was completely sure the keys are in the bag. The keys are not in the bag. And then he would never go on the weekends with them, and she was always fussing about that, like, you don't spend enough time with us, you know, even on the weekends. And then he said, okay, the 1st of May is coming in Croatia, it's a labor holiday, I don't know, it's Mexico. He said, okay, we will go on the labor, you know, so on that holiday we will go. And then 2 days before, she said, oh, where are we going? And she said, what? She said, you promised we are going to go away for the Labor Day. He said, I promised. I never said such a thing. I never said that. You're not going anywhere. She said, but you said you promised. You're completely crazy. You're inventing things. This is not happening. You know, like, do you hear yourself? You're completely unstable. You cannot take care of yourself, even of our son. And then she's completely like, what's going on? Like, what am I going to, you know, who am I going to call? What am I going to report? Which behavior am I going to report? He's maybe stealing my credit cards from the bag, or he's maybe taking away my keys from the bag, or he stole a yellow duck. And lots of things like that every day. And she felt completely crazy. She really felt like she's losing her mind. Like, she really started believing I'm really not stable. And she started to think, I really need him. He's stable. He's the one taking care of us, you know, because of small little things. Lots of, you know, offenses, lots of you're stupid, you don't know anything. The money, I already talked to you. And then long live internet, lots of following, lots of tracking, lots of controlling the phone, having because every time we think about the strategy he can follow her, they invent something else. So long live Google tracking, like every week when I have a Google, or every month when I have Google sending me the email, do you want to see where you were last month? I know where I were, but why do you know? You know, so lots of things like that. She should always be available, no pins on the phone, you know, because what are you hiding? They have something called, you probably know that, like they have an app which is copying her phone on his phone. So every time she Googles something, or every time she writes a message, he sees it on his phone. So completely controlled, completely and followed by the digital media. Or, you know, that's the end. What's the beginning of this? You are on the coffee with your friends and he video calls you and said, I missed you so much. And said, you know that I'm on coffee. And he said, oh, show me your friends so I can say hi. It's the beginning. The end is this. She cannot go anywhere without him knowing and asking, where were you? Why did you stop here? What's this 20 minutes? What's this half an hour? Now I have a client whose husband is an expert in ethics surveillance. What? He's actually an expert in ethical surveillance. So he's working with the government and everything about ethical surveillance. What do you think? She's, you know, under his surveillance completely, ethically. So this is how the coercion is going on. This is how control is going on, and this is how coercion is going on. There are some also new tactics used, that if you send your nude photos or your explicit photos, then the threat starts. I'm going to show everybody, I'm going to send it to your friends, I'm going to send it to your family, to your mother, to everything. So there's a lots of, you know, really control and really coercion in the relationship. And the problem is that lots of these tactics are not enough for the law enforcement and prosecutors to respond to this, to those. They are, all the criminal law is actually written so you can report to the incidents. We are having a fight, he hit me, and then I called the police, and then the police says, and I said, okay, what happened? And then you said, he pushed me, he shoved me, I have a bruise or whatever. There was yelling but it's the individual incidents. Really rarely the police says, okay, but what's going on in this relationship? Usually, can you report what happened 2 days ago, 5 days ago, 10 days ago? So lots of these tactics are non-criminal tactics of control and intimidation. There is no punishment in that. That's why we need to recognize the pattern. We need to recognize what's going on in, how this relationship works, because how this relationship works, that is abusive. Not every individual, thing is doing. And why is it important? Because it involves behavior that is repeated and continuous. It reduces the victim's ability to make decisions, to go away. That's why they stay, because they are afraid. It's limited their autonomy, and it makes separation from abuser more difficult. And at the same time, it leads to increased rates of suicide, self-harm, abuse, substance abuse. So lots of time you have women drinking alcohol, to survive. And then he's saying she's an alcoholic, which she actually is, but we never talk about how she gets there. Her mental health is completely bad, the risk of losing the children, everything else. So it's really, really having long-term consequences. And the most important consequences is that it doesn't end when the relationship stops. So every expert working in the social services and in the criminal justice and everything thinks that once you leave, everything is roses and flowers. It's not. He's not leaving you. It's really completely wrong to think that he invested so much time in controlling you that he would just let you leave. He's not. All the tactics, continues, and it's called post-separational violence. If you have children, it involves children. It's really bad, all the tactics, but it's completely different lecture. So I'm just going to, but it's really important for you to know that it doesn't stop when the relationship ends, and 92% of femicide involve coercive control as a key risk factor. And what happens when they do leave? This is the quote from my, actually the woman I work for. She says, we are like wounded animals in the wood, like always monitoring who is going to attack us next. We are not trusting, we don't trust anybody, we are used to people making bad things to us. So we are always on, on edge, always like on alert. So these are the reasons I stayed. I told you it's self-blame. Lots of them think that this is the biggest failure of their life because they couldn't keep the relationship, the family, the marriage. Lots of feelings of guilt, of shame, lots of family values, lots of emotional dependence, lots of financial dependence in it, isolation and a lack of social support. Fear of all the form of proceedings that are coming. So in Croatia, if you have a criminal, it's really, police sometimes come and say, okay, this is the criminal defense. So he's going to the criminal court. In Croatia, it takes the criminal court 5 to 7 years for the sentence. So during these 5 to 7 years, he's actually not a convicted abuser. So he's nothing. He's just like freely going, and he's having court court meetings, sessions every like once a year or twice a year, and then nothing happens, and then it goes on 5 to 7 years to the conviction. So it's like you cannot, and in this period he's seeing the kids, he's actually abusing you through that kids and everything. So and there are the threats of being killed. If you leave me, I will kill you. And it's not the question why did she stay, why didn't she leave, it's the question why she decided that staying was in her best interest. That's the right question. Because we know why she didn't leave. Here are all the reasons. There are a million of them. This is why she stays. We need to understand that. So if we understand that, then we will know how to react and what to offer to that family. And so for the statistics, lots of them have left at least once. And look at the percentage, 8 to 25% have left 2 to 5 times. And some statistics says it takes 7 times leaving and coming back for the final decision. So during this period, experts are completely driven crazy, thinking they did everything and then she came back. And then again, and then again, and then again, and then again. We always should ask, okay, why did she come back? What was her best interest in that period? Because sometimes the unknown, which is going to happen when she leaves, it's more frightful than the known hell you're living in. Because that's the known hell. You know how it works. But when you leave and you don't have it takes 5 to 7 years. He's seeing the kids. Nobody's protecting you. You're having a credit because you bought the apartment on the credit, and you have to pay it back. He doesn't. He will eventually, or he won't. He doesn't pay child support in Croatia. That's a huge problem. So it's enough in Croatia to pay $1 every 3 months for the court to think that you have a will to support your children. So if it's court order that you pay 200 euros a month, and you pay only €1 every 3 months, that's enough. Law cannot do you anything. She cannot prosecute you for not paying the alimony, because you say, no, but I do pay. You see, every time I have some money, I do pay. So every 3 months, just a small amount of money, so it's enough for you to avoid any persecution. So the important thing that the fear is not unfounded. Leaving doesn't mean the violence stops. Most abusers intensify their abuse when they realize she's going to leave. And 70% of women who were killed as a result of domestic violence were murdered after leaving the relationship. And this period of harm or of danger is actually 2 to 5 years. So it's not like if he's going to kill you, he's going to do it in the next few days. No, he's going to do it in the next 2 to 5 years. So in the next 2 to 5 years, you can have a completely different life, but he's still the danger, if he is. So the numbers of femicide are really high. It's not that they are high in percentage, it's that the men are usually victims of murder, and they are usually the perpetrators of the homicide. So actually, everything related to homicide is actually the men, belongs to men. Only in the category of intimate partner of femicide, or when it comes to killing in the intimate relationship, then 82% of that victims are women. So it's much more dangerous for women to be killed in a relationship than be killed elsewhere. Okay, so I have a question for you. Is it crime of passion or is it premeditated murder? What do you think? When a man kills her, is it crime of passion? He couldn't handle that she left him, so he was jealous, so he did it because he had a black moment, or he planned it. What do you think? Crime of passion? Somebody? No? Okay. Actually, femicide is the most predictable form of homicide. So out of all the other homicides, this one we can predict. How we can predict them? Because there are clusters of risk factors. There are motivation, which is in course control. And there are patterns of behavior which we can't recognize. And then control is stronger prediction of homicide and homicide risk than violence alone. So if there is a coercive control, then there's a huge risk of being killed. So this is the author. She did a research on a femicide completed in Great Britain and Wales, and she wrote a book. You can find it on the internet library. I don't know if it's supposed to be done like this, but okay. He says that threat of losing control is a dominant trigger for homicide. So once he realized he's going to lose control, that's a threat for femicide. And it moves away from the traditional crime of passion narrative. Because when the femicide happened, you have journalists always say in the news saying he couldn't take it, he was really shocked when she left, or she took his kids away, like he was reacting on something. Okay, so this is femicide timeline that she set up. She said there are 8 stages. And then that if we know which are the stages, and then if we know which question to ask, we can predict if she's in harm of being killed or not. So the first stage is history. Which history? His history. What do we know about his past relationship? How was he? Was there violence present? Was there abuse? Was there, what was going on in the past relationship? Here's the trick. Usually, women do know about his past relationship, but from his perspective. So she knows that he has a crazy ex-girlfriend who threatens him, who imagine even called the police on him because she couldn't take it that he's leaving. And she's just vindictive and she's completely crazy. And then women goes along with it and saying, oh my God, he's traumatized from his past relationship. Because women was really, really crazy. In UK, you have a law which allows you to come to the police and say, my sister is in a bad relationship, or I think my sister is in a bad relationship. Could you look at his record? GDPR and all the personal information aside, they say, okay, this is more important than us protecting his personal information. So you can come and say, I think this relationship is really bad and she's being abusive. And they're going to look at his records and tell you the information, which is usually completely private and completely sealed. And you cannot just walk and say, tell me, did Paulina have some criminal record? But in UK, you have a law which allows you to do that because they say the benefit is higher than the loss of his personal information. So the history is important. Then the beginning of the relationship. She says that relationship that ends up in the killing usually starts really fast, like really fast. Everything is happening like it, and the girls are describing this, it's destiny. They looked at each other and it was like, wow, she knew it's going to be for the rest of the life. They moved in together really fast. The I love you was on the table in the first week. Everything was like really, really, really going really, really fast. Moving in together, staying pregnant, engaged. Like, and even if the women say this was too fast for me, I was like, oh, I want to go away from this. Then he would say, but where, I love you, please. And they were really annoying about not letting her go. And she would say, he's trying so hard. Even if they had some like, something in my bones didn't fit, but they stayed. And then starts the relationship. The one I described you before, with lots of coercive control, with lots of abuse, emotional, physical. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't, for femicide to happen, it doesn't need to be the physical abuse there. And then it lasts whatever time it lasts. And then comes the triggers. The triggers are the events or one event that, threatens his control. Like somebody is getting sick, I had a woman which had a breast cancer, and she survived the breast cancer, and she said that during that period I realized completely abusive relationship, and I need to go out of it. And then he realized she's going to go away. She's not afraid of me anymore, or she's not reacting, she's not responding to the feedback as I want her. And she said that the last day before she left, she was sleeping with her hand like this, because she was afraid that he's going to suffocate her with a pillow. So if he comes, she could, fight back just because, that was the trigger in their family. So lots of this, like him losing the job, family members getting sick, so somebody has to go and take care of him. Family members coming to them to take, older family, like his mother or coming, her mother. So if something, threatens the pattern he created and family things he created, these are the triggers that could trigger, her for leaving. And triggers that could say, okay, his control is now, he's losing control. So what does he do when he loses control? He escalates. He escalates in the attempt to gain back the control. So if I'm thinking I'm losing something, I'm going to, give my effort or escalate the abusive behavior so she's staying. So this is when the women go back. This escalation is the moment she gets back to 3 because of the escalation. In this escalation, you have lots of, I will kill myself. Him saying, I will kill myself, and then the children will lose their father, and it would be your responsibility. I would kill myself because you left me. And then she said, oh my God, he's going to kill himself. Or he's bleeding, he's saying, I will change. He even starts to go to some therapy or marriage therapy, but just for a short time. Every strategy he can use, so she stays. If she don't stay and he sees, okay, this is the end, he's going to be making a change in his thinking. Like, there are 3 possible changes. One is, okay, you're lost. So now you are becoming his history. Okay, so he leaves. If he lives here and leave you, you're becoming his history. He's going to do the next abusive relationship, and you're the crazy women, which you're crazy ex-girlfriend. Yeah. The second change is I'm going to ruin you. I'm going to ruin your life, and I'm going to do everything I can in the next period. You know, I'm going to ruin your. I'm going to go to your workplace saying you are like this. I'm going to. I'm not going to. You know, I'm going to breathe to your neck till the end of your life. I'm going to be there. I'm going to rent a house next to you. You know, I'm going to take you the kids. This is really often happening. So I'm going to ruin your life. I'm going to persecute you for every, like, there are women which have 20, 30 case in the court because he's suing them for this, for this, for this, for this. And so remember, in Croatia, the cases last a long time. So she's always paying some lawyers, always going to the court because he invented something new. Then the third one is I'm going to kill you. That's the third decision. So it could be either one of these three. Fortunately, the third one is rarest, but it happens. So then he starts planning. In this period, there are lots of surveillance. There are lots of him appearing at her workplace, you know, just popping out of nowhere. Her seeing, or he's just like, she said, he's changing, something changed in his behavior. That was the women were saying. And then even he told somebody, I'm going to kill her. And then the friend says, come on, stop saying crazy things. You're not going to do that. So even if he did say somebody, everybody else would say, come on, you're not going to do that. So lots of planning, lots of looking into what should I do or how would I do it, lots of surveillance, lots of everything going on, and then the killings happened. It could be in form of femicide, it could be in form of femicide suicide, so he killed himself and her. It could be in form of killing the kids and himself, so she stays alive. And that's the ultimate revenge. You're going to stay alive and suffer for the things that you left me. And I'm going to kill the kids and I'm going to kill myself also. In these numbers, there are lots of gray areas, gray statistics, like disappearance of women, which nobody found them and nobody knows where they are. They even say that in the frontal car crashes, when you have frontal car crashes, the whole family are victims, you know, like, and nobody knows why the car just frontally, you know, moved to the other lane or bumped into something. They say that in these kind of accidents, there are lots of femicide, actually, which we don't know, which we don't recognize and everything. So, so this is how it works. If we recognize it from the beginning, we can, you know, end it. We can end it before getting here. In Croatia, last 2 years ago, we had really, really bad femicide going on. It was the girl, she was 20 years old, and she just started a relationship with a young boy who was a cop. And they just started a relationship. And she was saying, everybody, this is complete, he's crazy, this is not good, this is, and she was like trying to get away from him. And then he moved really fast. And then he killed her. Formally, they weren't even in the relationship. Everybody was saying, but he killed her, and then it was really bad because he said that she was playing with his gun, official gun, and then the gun went off, and it was the accident, not the killing. But then everybody's saying, okay, come on, how do you know, there's something going on here. And then the other police precincts came and they did the investigation and said, okay, no, this is actually homicide. So he kill herself, kill her. Not so. And then he said it was suicide, and then they said, okay, no, you kill her. But they knew each other like month and a half. She tried to end it, but she didn't. Nobody paid attention to how dangerous he was and what could he do to her. So we could stop it here, we could try to stop it in the beginning or even here. We could try to stop it here. We could recognize it if we are experts and we have women saying there are lots of post-separational violence. He's there, he's surveilling me, he's not letting me go, we should, we can recognize it here. But if it goes to the 7, then we lost it. We can most certainly say it's going to be attempt of femicide or femicide itself. But if we know the stages, we could react before. Okay. So just, I already told you this, just for the end, I'm going to tell you that all of this requires us to really be very careful when we work with the women who experience violence because they are traumatized. And this approach itself, it's not just for the gender-based violence, it's for it's actually promoted to be in every health services, in every public services, education services, because we know, all the other lectures, we know that lots of people are traumatized and then we can re-trigger them, But in this situation, we know what they have been through, we know that they are traumatized, and we really should be trauma informed. And this really helps us to shift the focus from what is wrong with you, because we really see stressed women, we really see them in emotionally really vulnerable states. So we don't think about what's wrong with you, we start asking what happened to you. And this is the shift which should happen, and it's not usually happened in the social services or in other, and this is why we have institutional violence. This is why we have experts actually doing the violence themselves. This trauma-informed care is based on strengths. It recognizes that many negative behaviors are actually coping strategies, that when we see women who are really trying to pick a fight every time, or we see women who are really passive, or we see women who are really there are some women who are really like always trying to be really like nice to you or polite or everything. This all could be trauma response, just a different type: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So these are all the survival strategies we should recognize and react to them as such, and not like she's behaving really bad, she's really tough client. And then this helps maximize survivor's choice and control over the healing process, because sometimes it's really important that we don't become the next coercion. Telling the survivors what should they do. You should do that, you should do that, you should do that, because they just left the relationship in which they were told what to do. So we should really be there for their choices, even if we don't approve them, even if we think they're not the best choice. We will explain them, but we will allow them to make their own choices. These are the principles. There are 6 of them. But what's really important is that you are focused, that there's a safety, lots of safety, but not just physical safety, but emotional safety, that they feel safe with us, that they feel that we are not going to let them down. But at the same time, it's really important to really be transparent, to really promise only the things you can promise, to be really upfront about everything. There's a lots of collaboration and mutuality in that, because we are learning from them as much as they are learning and getting support from us. Because we are learning how to, how people can survive lots of really bad situations. There should be lots of empowerment, voice and choice, really empowering them to make their choices, to speak for themselves, learn them how to do that because they were silenced for a long time. And we should do really understand cultural consideration, historical and gender issues. We should really understand different cultures that have some different values and everything, and peer support in that is really, really important. So I'm at the last slide. So really, the violence really does take away freedom, but our understanding can really give it back. And when we see a person, not just a problem, when we listen, instead of diagnose all the time, does she has a borderline personality disorder, or she has a dependent disorder? Okay, does this really happen, change the things that happen to her? They don't. What happened, happened. Understanding coercive control, femicide, and trauma is not just about recognizing danger, which also is, it's about recognizing power. So really, you are the one who could make a difference, who could be her first social start of her first social network. The one she knows it's going to be there, who's going to be understanding, and that could be the beginning of maybe last time going away and coming back. But we don't know. It could be the first, and we should stick to the other 6. Hoping it may be with us, it could be just 2, not 6 or 7 of them. Okay, so this is it. Thank you for your attention. Okay, any questions? I killed you. Nobody? Nothing? Okay, thank you.
In those cases that we can see the normalization of the first stage and they don't escape, how conscient is the aggressor of their conducts that were constructed in family and normalized by the society?
It is, but the things are changing. The society is actually changing the narrative that violence is not accept. We don't accept violence. So did I understand well? It's in Spanish, maybe. Okay.
En los casos en que la violencia no escala, digamos, a llegar a feminicidio, pero están estas conductas de control que se normalizan, que tuvieron origen en la familia y después con los pares se normalizaron también, y luego toda la sociedad como que de alguna forma lo ve normal, lo acepta. ¿Qué tan consciente está el agresor de que eso no es correcto?
Okay, so how do I tell if everything is lasting and normalized? How should she?
The question is, how conscious is in this case, the man, the aggressor, that he's doing?
That's a great question. I would say he knows what he's doing, because he's not doing that in any other situation. So he's not controlling his colleagues at work. He's not controlling his friends. He's not controlling his family. He's controlling only his wife and the kids. So we should always think about that. And that's actually the problem, because we have other people saying he's not like that. He's completely different. He's understanding. He's always helping. He's there for everybody. He's a good friend. He's a good guy. And then we have different behavior in this relationship. So it's actually a strategy, you know, we should, so it's a strategy. So we can maybe discuss, did he see this in his family and he thinks this is the right way to behave in the relationship. But then again, he's not doing this in any other relationship. He's doing this in this relationship, in this form, in intimate partner relationship. So I would say that he knows what he's doing, you know, and he knows that this is not, because he sees that, you know, the commercials, the episodes, the movies and everything, he knows that this is not the good thing. He can maybe rationalize it, but we know that people rationalize every behavior. Yeah, that's, but I don't think we should do that also. And I would say he knows what he's doing. And because none of it, it's impulsive, it's really strategic, you know. So if there is a strategy, then you know what you are doing.
Okay, well, I was thinking, how as therapists can we apply this question about how the women are staying with their partners? Because we were in the society in general, it's like, it's your fault, it's your responsibility. And as therapists, sometimes we fall into that too. No, so how we can apply this question, that why did this woman decide to stay and was in her best interest, without falling in the maybe blaming her for staying and being the responsible of the violence that she's living.
Okay, if I have a women, some we often have women which are in, they recognize they're in abusive relationship, but they're not ready to go. Okay, so first thing, that in Croatia, if you're an expert working in any other organization other than the NGO which is related to gender-based violence, you're obliged to report this violence. So if you're working as a therapist in private sector or in some hospital, and you have a woman which comes to you and saying, my husband is abusive, but I'm not going to report, and I'm not going to leave, you are the one who should, at least that's in Croatia, you are the one who should report. You have an ethical and actually legal obligation to report that. So people always ask me, you know, how could I sustain the relationship if I'm going to report this? It's really hard. But at the same time, you don't have to report it this minute, because she's usually living in it for quite a period of time. And this is about transparency, you know, saying, you told me something that I'm obliged to report, I have to report it. But first, let's talk about what's stopping you from leaving. Not why do you stay, but what, you know, what's stopping you from taking action? What do you need to make a decision? Because they came to you, they know that what they are going through is not good, it's bad, they need help. But at the same time, they are trying to go away without any consequences. You know, for them, if they could just disappear, it would be the best, you know, but they cannot. So this is, I don't know which is the law in Mexico. Do you have an obligation to report?
I don't think
No
so.
estamos muy seguros.
So
Maybe there's not like a certain law to do it. It's
yeah.
not.
So in Croatia, you're obliged. So this is maybe even better situation, because you can work in empowerment, you know, empowering her. You should just not talk about, you know, why does she leave? You know, why did she leave? Because if you ask why didn't you leave, then you are judging. Okay, if you ask what's keeping you in this relationship, then you are understanding. I really want to understand what's in it for you. And then it allows her to actually explore what's in it for her. Why doesn't she leave? Because sometimes women don't know. They think, oh, I don't know. So maybe you haven't, you know, some rights, you know, that she could apply for this and this and this. So maybe her fears are actually something you can help her with. But sometimes it helps her explore, why am I staying? What's the thing that is keeping me? And then the things that I usually also discuss with them is what he has to do for you to say, this is my boundary. This is my hard boundary. Beyond that, I don't go. So what behavior does he has to do? You know, how does it can escalate to what point that you say, this is enough? This question also helps them. And sometimes they say, oh my God, I could forget, I could, forgive him everything. And then they start, how did I get here? Or sometimes they say, if he hits the kid, I'm going to leave. The kids are the boundaries. And then I talk to them about kids witnessing the violence is also violence towards them. Living in the parents' abusive relationship is also abusive for them. So by staying, you're not protecting them. You're actually, by staying, it's not you are actually being violent to them, because, but sometimes the experts actually tell them, because if you're not leaving, you're the responsible for the abuse of the children, even though he's the one abusing. So I don't know if I.
Yes, thank you.
So just be patient and see what's, try to understand what does she need if she stays.
Thank you.
Yeah, but for us, only if we work in the NGO, which is related to the gender-based violence, we are not obligated to report. So we are actually exclusively, So this is good for us, because then we can work, and then they know that we won't report it. But it's actually, for us, it's really, really hard, because it's always the question, every time the woman gets killed, I always ask myself, is she my client? Do I know her? Was she, did she came and everything? So that's really hard. And, just a few months ago, we had a really young girl, your age. She was 7 months pregnant, and she came to us saying, and he's really abusive. Really, really, really abusive. And you can see that it's going to escalate the minute the child comes to the family, because this is going to be high stress. He's abusive now. He's going to be abusive even more. And we were really doing everything to keep her, to offer her the shelter, everything. But she said, he's going to change once the child comes. And we knew it's not going to happen. And so we were really, this was really ethically, for me, knowing that this child is going to be, born in the family which is going to be abusive, and knowing that once the kid is there, it's going to be even harder for her to leave. That now is the, now is the time. But she didn't listen. And so we really left our doors open, knowing that in a year or two, she's definitely going to be back. There's no chance in life that this relationship is going to be changed in a good way.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias por las preguntas. Thank you so much for the questions. I think this is a topic that let us thinking a lot. Creo que justo el tema, y me parece muy importante el poder abordarlo desde pues la especialidad, ¿no? Desde este programa que tenemos con respecto a el trabajo con adultos, grupos, ¿no? Que es principalmente desde donde hemos enmarcado como esta actividad nos deja pensando mucho sobre nuestro papel como terapeutas, como clínicos, porque y es un tema que es también muy importante, muy actual, que tiene una serie de consecuencias, no solamente para las mujeres, que en la mayoría, como lo vemos, lo abordamos desde esta perspectiva de género, que afecta tanto a mujeres como a hombres y a niños, a personas de la comunidad también, LGBTQB, LGBT, ¿sí? ¿Lo dije bien? LGBTQB. Últimamente eh, lo he dicho incompleto. Em, y es algo que nos deja pensando mucho sobre nuestro actuar como clínicos, ¿no? Las consecuencias que pueden haber para todos los involucrados, for all the people that it's involved. It's not only for a woman. I was just thinking, every time I was listening to you, one of my questions for you, Professor Anita, it's like, what happened with these men? I was just thinking a lot no, esto también a nuestra experiencia en la clínica, no solamente es el trabajo con las mujeres que viven estas relaciones violentas, sino qué pasa también con los hombres, ¿no? ¿Qué pasa con estos hombres que de alguna manera están relacionados? O sea, ¿qué ocurre con ellos, no?
Million dollar question. The one who can answer that is going to get, yes, nobody, there's so many, like everything in psychology, there's so many risk factors which could, together, but the things that we can change and things we know, it's machism, the culture which, celebrates men and men power and everything about men, the culture in which there are big gender differences, in which men have higher payments than women. That's all the things that we can change, and then the way that we raise our children. These are all the small steps, but it doesn't guarantee. We know the genetics, we know all the psychology, we know social reasons, we know biocycle, and then we know the digital, we can do everything great. And then they go to the digital world and look at the videos, which are sometimes really, really, really bad, and, saying how you should treat women and how the women are ownership and everything. So I would say it's $1 million question. Which risk factors in this situation, were the one that peaked and that created abuser? But what we do know, that lots of abusers, I would say vast majority of abusers was also abused in their childhood. The abuse itself, it's not the trajectory towards you being the abuser, but we know that when we look at the abuser, we will find the abuse. So there are, lots of things. There are lots of abuse in the family, alcoholism, living in the society which promotes gender differences and which promote machism, and then the perception of I'm not going to get punished for this, the impunity. So that's also really important perception.
Muchos de los factores que también tenemos aquí como sociedad y que vemos que compartimos, ¿no? Con otros países, incluso alrededor del mundo. Y bueno, yo solamente quisiera cerrar agradeciéndole. Thank you so much, Professor Anita, for this topic that make us to think a lot of our position as a clinical psychologist, ¿no? Muchas gracias también por las preguntas. Creo que nos quedamos con muchas reflexiones y muchas más preguntas que nos ayuden, como lo decíamos desde nuestra clase, a aterrizar y a estructurar todos estos cuestionamientos para también seguir no solamente formándonos con respecto a... con respecto a nuestro quehacer clínico. Así que muchísimas gracias, doctora Ceci. Gracias por también desde PUEP ayudarnos a estructurar esta actividad. Estamos muy agradecidos y pues quisiéramos darle ahora la palabra para el cierre, por favor.
Claro que sí. Okay. Bueno, la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, la Facultad de Psicología, el Programa Único de Especializaciones en Psicología, a través de la especialización en intervención clínica en adultos y grupos, extiende la presente constancia a la doctora Anita Lauri por su participación como ponente de esta conferencia.
A Mexican present.
Mexican candies. Muchas gracias. Wow. También a mi querida doctora Paulina Arenas Landgrave por su valiosa participación en la coordinación y realización de esta conferencia. Muchas gracias, doctora Paulina. Gracias. Bueno, el próximo miércoles los esperamos en la siguiente conferencia con la doctora que está aquí presente con nosotros. Agradezco la presencia de todos y cada uno de ustedes, a los ingenieros que están allá, el ingeniero Gold, a Lalo y al equipo del PUEB. Doctora Emilia, un gusto tenerla aquí el día de hoy. Gracias a todos los asistentes.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Doctora Emilia, vengas a tomar una foto con las doctoras al frente y al grupo, ¿no? Les invitamos a una foto antes de que cierre. Al inicio justo explicábamos un poco desde dónde vienen las doctoras, doctora Emilia, y platicábamos acerca del STAR y cómo nos acercaste a esta sociedad hace ya 20 años. Gracias, Emilia, por estar aquí.